In this lesson, we'll begin posing our major actions called extremes. That's what this initial process of animating should include, our extremes. And then later on, we go back and add our in-between passes. Okay, and just FYI, depending on the scene, we can have one or more passes of extremes. We'll probably have a few in this kit. Okay, and also some things to consider, our poses should reflect realism. So whatever or however we pose our character, we should ask, would that really happen? And also when it comes to timing and spacing, getting that down, creating believable weight in our scene, we should ask, is that how it would really happen? Is that the correct weight? Okay, so that should constantly go through our minds. And there's also a certain personality we want to give our characters as well. That's one of the most critical ingredients in animation that lead to a successful and rewarding character performance. Now, we won't focus too much on the personality. We're just going to focus briefly on it, but we still want to make sure we have it. And for this, we want to give our characters brief bios, as well as our scene, so we know them before we actually begin animating them and working with them. Okay, so in this case, we can ask a few questions in regards to this scene. One question we can ask is how heavy this crate's going to be, okay, because that's definitely going to be a factor. And we know this is the light push, so keeping that in mind, we'll give this crate the correct amount of weight, as well as the character. How heavy is he? How much does he weigh? Because that's going to be a factor as well. And also his strength too. Is he pretty strong and he's going to be able to push this back with no effort, or is he a little weak and he's going to take a little bit more time getting it to the stopping mark? And then we want to get into his mind, so to speak, and figure out his attitude. What's his character like? Okay, so to answer these questions, let's say that the crate is about 40 pounds or so. And let's say the character weighs about 150. Okay, and as far as his strength, he's pretty strong. He can hold a little bit more than his weight, so he's going to be able to push this crate back with little to no effort. As far as his attitude, let's say he's more of a positive, casual type of worker. So keeping these things in mind for our bio, there's also some things we want to consider as far as the push goes. And for that, the character's going to keep his knees bent, and the character's going to get in close to the object. And then most of the force of the push, it's going to come from the legs. Okay? So with these things now discussed, we also have storyboards that we're going to go by. So let me bring those up for you. And here they are. So as you can see, we have about 6 panels that we're going to go through in this kit, and they all reflect our major actions, okay, of this push. So also, just FYI, if you don't do storyboards before you begin your animations, please get into the habit of doing so, because it's going to save you time by keeping your scene organized, by giving your scene direction rather than trying to come up with it as you go. So we want to make sure we stay organized throughout. So getting right into the storyboards, we have our character in a casual stance in the first storyboard, okay, about ready to push on the crate, push it back. And then by the second storyboard, the character is moving in for the push, okay. And notice the line of action there. See how it's more of a C curve in the back, okay. But now watch the line of action in the third storyboard, where the character is now pushing on the crate and starting to push it back. Notice it's more of a backward C. And we're going to notice that going from a forward C to a backward C, that type of contrast is going to add to the appeal in the character's motion. So we want to strive for that as well, getting the most appealing look. Okay? And we want to figure out how to do just that. So here's one of the ways to do that. Okay? So by the fourth storyboard, he's now finally pushed the crate all the way back to the stopping mark. And notice the line of action is still a backward C there. But by the fifth, he's pushing off the crate, and then it goes into a forward C again. Okay? And then by the sixth, he's just standing in a casual position, having finally successfully brought the crate all the way back, and he's completed his push, completed the exercise. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get back to the scene, keeping these storyboards in mind, because that's how we're going to base our poses. Well, with these things now discussed, we're now ready to begin posing. Okay, so let's begin starting from frame one. And by the way, our poses are pretty much going to be on a 10 frame basis. Okay, except for our first and second pose. Our first will lie on frame one, and our second on frame 20. Okay, but afterwards we'll just add our poses on a 10 frame basis to have completed posing. So on frame one, let's give them that casual stance. And when wanted to figure out how to pose a certain character, definitely get some reference. Like one great thing to do is go to a park and study how people stand and how they move around, because that's great reference right there. Okay, and we want to make sure that our characters reflect again real life. So on frame one, let's have him shift his weight a little bit to his left, some. Okay, and then we can bring his left foot out a little bit there, and then go to the heel pivot channel and point that out some in a more casual stance, and then his knee is going to follow the direction of the foot. So we'll have that knee come over some, like so. All right, and for this right foot, let's go ahead and bring that out some more and forward too. Oh, we're going to undo that. There we go, forward. And then we'll bring the heel out for that even more than the left foot. Then we'll go to the knee and make sure that that's going in the right direction. All right, great. Now we can bring him down some to make sure that is down and forward, so that his knees aren't locked up in IK lock, not as much. Bring him forward. And then for his hips, they're actually going to point to the direction of where he's leaning here. So we're going to want to, in the Z, we're going to want to bring him up like so. So it's favoring the left side there. All right. And then because of that, we'll bring the character down a little bit more to make sure that this right knee has a little bit more of a bend. And then for this left foot, let's bring that back some, just a tad bit. And we want to make sure that we keep them balanced. Definitely check out the animation in or your poses in more than one view to make sure that the character is staying balanced, because we don't want to get to the end of the project and figure out, oh, he needed to move over a little bit more. We definitely don't want to do that. Let's bring his hips up a little bit more so that left leg is a little bit more locked and the right leg more bent. Okay. And maybe even bring in the right leg a little bit closer. All right. So that's looking pretty good. As far as his back goes, we can bring that back a little bit. So he's kind of leaning back. And his chest too, we can bring that, have that lean back a little bit there. All right. So once we have that, how about his head? Let's have it look towards the crate, but in more of a tilt, head tilt, so it looks more interesting. Okay, rather than just a straight on look. We want to go for what's going to be the appealing look. As far as his arm, let's go ahead and bring that down, and we're actually going to have that rest on his side. Again, to give him more of an interesting, appealing pose. So we'll bring that over. And for his hand here, let's bring that down and up like that. So it's resting on his side, and then we'll go with that wrist control still selected. Let's go to the fist channel and close that up completely with a value of 10. All right, and then we'll need to bring his hand out some more. So let's do that. All right, great. Okay, and also there are times where we need to, let's say if we don't like a certain pose, maybe we can go back a little bit later on and change it up a bit. So this process is not final, okay, at all. Definitely experiment, see what works and what doesn't. For the shoulder, let's bring it back a little bit in the Y. Okay, like that. All right, so that's looking pretty good. How about for his right hand? We'll just bring that down to a side. Okay, like so. And then we'll want to bring his shoulder down from here slightly, back and down. So back in the Y some, just very slightly, and then down in the Z. Because his hand's going to be a little bit behind him here. And then we'll rotate his wrist down. And thumb pointed into the body. As far as his fingers, let's go to the fist channel and bend them so they look more natural. We bend them some and also close them up in the spread. A little bit more there. And we do have his fingers interpenetrating with his legs, so we'll just go ahead and bring his hand back and then fix the wrist so that it's flowing with the arm, as it should. All right. Great. So let's see how our pose is looking now. Maybe we could take this hand, bring it a little bit closer. Like that. Okay. So I want to check out our pose to make sure everything's looking good before we call it done and move on. And I think for right now that's fine. And again, if we need to, we could go back later on and change a few things. But for right now, let me go ahead and hide the curves. Yeah, this pose is looking pretty good. Great. So with that done, that finishes our first pose right now, and it also completes this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll continue posing out our extremes based off of our storyboards.